All right, all right, all right. YouTube world, how you doing out there? Coming back with the fifth segment, fifth episode of How Did I Get Life? This is the show that, I highlight individuals who had life and life without and came home and changed their lives around and got things together and, figured it out. So, everybody always highlight the negativity of people who didn't got out of prison and they get out and do some goofy shit. So I want to highlight the people who ain't doing goofy shit, who's really out here, maintaining and making a difference in their community and in their families and back into society again. So with that being said, I'm Stacey Taylor, the host of the show. Thank y'all for tuning in. I got another great episode with another great guest. Introduce yourself.
Charles Braggs.
Okay.
South LA.
Tell us a little bit about you.
Oh man, it's been a journey, man, from start to finish.
How much time did you wind up actually getting sentenced to? How much time did you actually wind up doing?
24 years.
Okay.
I did 24 years under the 3 strikes law.
Okay.
And, if it wasn't for the groups that I was taking, I wouldn't have never start to understand myself. Right. I started going to the law library and realized I had a loophole in my case.
All right, but before we get there, we're going to take it all the way back.
Okay.
We're going to take it back to, how was your childhood? Where you grew up at, what area, family, all that there, the dynamics of that.
Oh, man, where I grew up at South Central on the west side.
Okay.
Right off of Crenshaw and Florence.
All right.
And just growing up right there in that area, it just seemed like it was so much excitement going on. And my mother, she, single parent.
Yeah.
But we were living with her parents at the time, or our
you
apartment.
lived with your grandparents?
So our apartment, originally I was staying on, when I was up to like 2 years old, I was staying on 84th in Normandy, 84th place in Normandy, right? And my older brother, Jasper, he and I were playing in the kitchen with the toaster, sticking trash in and everything that caused the fire.
Wow.
Right? So we end up on 10th Avenue.
Wow.
Right? And so from there.
So it was just you and your older brother?
My mother was pregnant with my little brother, Archie.
Okay.
And so I remember going to Louisiana, my father from Louisiana, and I remember going to Louisiana, coming back, and, we took my little brother out there to see my great-grandparents and my father parents. And I remember coming back, that was 1976.
Yeah.
And so in the front, on our property was 2 houses. So the front house, my grandparents was renting it out, the front unit. And so it was a older lady, Miss Hunter, with her granddaughters. She had a lot of granddaughters. And so they were like in our same age bracket. Yeah. So my mother, older sister, my Aunt Gladys, she was staying on Imperial and Figueroa. So she had an incident with her youngest child's father, where he pulled a butcher knife. So they end up coming stand over there. And so so I got my cousins. She had 3 kids. And so my mother had 3 kids. And so that right there, that was a bunch.
6 kids.
Yeah.
How many bedrooms?
3 bedroom.
3 bedrooms.
Yeah. So I remember my grandfather.
4 grown people.
Yeah. But they was workers.
That was family back then, though.
Yeah. My grandfather, he was still working at the post office. Yeah. He was in the Navy.
Yeah.
So my grandma, she stayed and watched the grandkids and everything. So we figured her program out. At a young age. Yeah. Like, she gonna watch Price is Right, her soaps and everything. So
don't bother.
Yeah, so we ended up venturing, like, we would play in the yard, and then as we start to see our friends from elementary, we start venturing out down the street. And then we started having a little code and everything. We started being sneaky and right back then from a young age.
So what age did you think, what age would you say that it went from being mischief to, being criminal? What dynamics changed that, if you can?
7.
Yeah.
At the age of 7 for me.
7 years old.
Right?
Yeah.
I was going to Hyde Park Elementary. I had a friend named Billy.
Yeah.
He was in my second grade class, and you know he was like, his family was
Dysfunctional. Yeah.
right? And so he said, "Man, let's go to Thrifty's before class start on Crenshaw and Slauson, right?" So we run all the way down there. So what Billy did was they had them you remember them Hot Wheel crack up cars?
Yeah, I remember Hot Wheel cars.
They had just came out, so like, man, let's go down there. I knew we was going to steal, but at the same time when we went, the door was open.
Yeah.
But they wasn't open.
Yeah.
So we went in there. We was little small kids and going through. He was like, "Here go the Hot Wheels right here." But he was so fast, I didn't even see him take the car out the packet and put it in my pocket. So when the lady came, we startled her.
Yeah.
She was like, "Hey, what y'all doing here?" But then she noticed that open wrapper. She called the manager. And my mother, all I hear is my mother. I said, I don't even remember giving the manager, to this day, I don't remember giving the manager my mama number.
Somebody gave it to her.
Yeah, right.
She was there.
Yeah, so she was like, when she came in, she seen Billy, because previous, she told me don't be hanging with Billy, right? And so when she seen Billy, she's like, "Oh, I told your ass don't be hanging with Billy."
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, she had to take off from work. Back then, I didn't understand what that meant, right? I didn't know why she was so upset.
Yeah.
She just went to work. Now she have to leave work. She working for the government.
Yeah.
For Hughes Aircraft. And so she told me to get in the back seat. That's how mad she was.
Yeah.
If I'd have sat in that front seat, she would have backhanded me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I remember going up 8th Ave in the back seat like, dang, we got the 71st fast.
Yeah.
Right?
You see moving.
Yeah, right. So it was like, before I can even get out the car, take your butt back in there and take off all them clothes. I'm like, man, I'm walking past my grandfather, looking at him like, stop this.
Yeah.
Grandma, he was just looking like, and it was like, I got a whooping with a extension cord. That's what we used to get whoopings with back then, you know. But that didn't deter me.
No, it didn't deter you.
You know, because I had something to prove to my peers, you know, like, oh, that was nothing. What we doing today?
Yeah. And where you think that stemmed from? Where you think that kind of, you know, at such a young age, where you think that, you know, something that was instilled in you to the point where you feel like, you know, I'm gonna, no matter nobody gonna get my ass whooped, I'm still gonna do, you know, the things I know.
I know what it stems from is from the neglect and abandonment I felt from my father.
Without a doubt.
But I didn't know these things.
At that time, no, without a doubt.
At that time.
Yeah.
But, you know, my father was a truck driver.
Yeah.
And so when he had loads and things, he would come through L.A.
Yeah.
And they would, you know, we'd meet him on the east side off by the ABC.
Yeah.
Off 109th.
Yeah.
In Maine.
108th, man, right there. 108th, 109th. Yeah, without a doubt.
109th.
Yeah, right there.
The fire station on 109th.
108th, without a doubt.
He used to park. They used to park their truck in this field right there on 108, and sometimes in front of this little hamburger stand. It used to be a hamburger stand. Used to be sitting on Main right there, off to the right.
Yeah.
And so I used to look forward to going on the east side, seeing my father, because when they came from Louisiana, that's where they was at, on 109th, right there off of Main.
Yeah.
And so they still had a lot of ties over there, so I would go over there, and, you know, I didn't mind driving and going. I'm like, I'm finna see my father.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to see my father as much as possible.
Yeah.
But when he started to tell me, oh, I'm gonna give you this and that, and I go tell my friends, and and they like, I thought you was getting a big arcade game. Like, my father, he gonna bring it, you know. So I started hustling in the streets. As far as the hustle back then growing up was watching my neighbors turn that corner with the groceries and running down there like it was competition amongst my brothers and cousins, you know, taking out the trash.
That's right.
You know, and so that developed into a hustle.
Yeah.
And so that hustle became addictive.
Yeah.
Found ourselves standing on Crenshaw and Florence at the Mobile pumping gas. And from there,
kids don't do that no more.
Nah.
That's right.
Nah,
that was us. No, that was us.
Yeah.
Washing cars.
And then somehow, some way, next the building next door to our property
Yeah.
was a crack house. It was
Wow.
a rock house.
Yeah.
Right. And so I didn't even know at the time these dudes was that owned that building. They was.
About what year this is?
This is like 80, probably like 84.
Okay. Crack fresh out.
Yep, 84.
It's fresh.
And so, these dudes on the other side of Florence,
Yeah.
Inglewood,
Yeah.
they like Bloods, they like coming over here. I don't know who they is.
Yeah.
Like, hey, y'all want to make some money. So to me, already in that hustling, addicted to hustling, I'm like, what?
Absolutely.
Like, here, bring me back 80 off of this. 80? All right, I'm going to keep 20.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to Sears right
Yeah.
there in Inglewood, right by the forum.
Yeah.
Go play some games and get a slice of pizza.
Yeah.
So my cousin, my older cousin, he was 3 years older than me.
Yeah.
He like, what you doing? He seen me outside just standing there by the gate. What
Yeah.
you doing? I said, I'm hustling. I'm making some money. He said, let me see. And I told him what I was doing. He said, how much you making off of that? I said, $20. He said, man, you supposed to be making more than that. So when I went to take the guy the money, I shortchanged him. He was like, where the rest? I said, no, I get this.
Yeah.
He just started laughing. And then from there, it was like I introduced it to my little brother, who was 8,
Wow.
and had him. I influenced my little brother and putting the pressure on him because of the older generations that was above me.
Yeah.
How they was forcing stuff on me.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like, this is the trends.
Yeah.
We growing up, it was all about trends
Yeah.
and stuff, right?
And the funny part about it, when we did that type of goofy shit, we thought we was showing them love. Ain't that some
Yeah.
shit?
Go
ahead, though, yeah.
And so, like I said, I'm living right off of Florence.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm right here on in the fast lane.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm seeing everything coming from the east side, going to Crenshaw. I'm seeing everything leaving off Crenshaw, going back to the east side, going back east, right? And I'm hearing the music. And, my toys, I used to start emulating my toys. Like if I was in the lowrider, I always wanted the lowrider. And so I'm like, dang, I didn't know. I didn't understand the material things. I was so caught up in the materials.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought life was.
Yeah.
And I was trying to figure out how can I obtain that material that it seemed like it was excitement with it.
Without a doubt. People treat you a different way when you got it.
Yeah.
Definitely, as you know, coming from that, when I'm about the same age as you, so when that crack hit, we seen people that was broke, literally.
Yeah.
And then 2-3 days later, they was rich. How the hell he got all this money? New car, new clothes, whole image. Like, I want that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they was our ghetto superstars. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
They was our Hollywood stars when we seen them. You know what I mean? In the big cars. You know what I mean? Whole bunch of them cats. With all the big names back in the day, Whiteys and the Tootie Reeses and all them cats. You know what I'm saying? Fast Eddies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you used to see them dudes like, wow, man, these dudes are stars. You know what I mean? They got everything. So it was like you had no other. That was for us. That was the way out. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That was the way out. But yeah. So how did you wind up getting to the gangs? I mean, like this, kind of, running how all that, because that's how it happened with me. I started hustling first, and then the hustling led into the gang. Because now you need a crew now. You got
But mine was different.
Okay.
And it was like the gang part, it seemed like it was just, naturally, because the same people that I went to elementary school, preschool with, played at Van Ness Park with, on the baseball field and everything. These was the same people at the park.
Yeah.
So I knew these guys.
Yes.
Right? So these are the people I'm gonna fight with and fight over.
Without a doubt.
So I didn't, me personally, I didn't have to get put on the gang. I chose to get put on.
Yeah.
Right? Because I didn't want no favoritism shown towards me or whatever. I wanted to work as hard as the next person that's gangbanging. I wanted to create my own character.
Without a doubt.
Right? Because that's what we creating when we in that gang.
Right.
We creating a character.
That's all we doing.
Right? Because in the gang world, when you create that character, sometimes you forget your own first name.
No, for real.
It'll sound awkward if somebody
No,
calls
for
me
real.
the first name. You know what I
It took
mean?
me a while to get used to Stacy.
Yeah, you know?
Now don't call me Stacy.
Yeah,
So
like-
yeah, it really was. Yeah.
And so once you, you know, after a while, you know, when you lose somebody,
Yeah.
one of your friends, your childhood friends, then that really just,
Yeah.
it turns you up.
Yeah.
Right. And so you searching through life like, all right, what are we supposed to do next?
Yeah.
Right. So you looking towards those that's older than you.
Yeah.
And I mean, unfortunately, you know, you have to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
Like, can't nobody control your vessel but you.
That's without a doubt. Without a doubt.
You know.
Without a doubt.
But I mean, like how we spoke about the superstars in the ghetto and everything.
Yeah.
But once we got older, right, and start going behind those walls, you start realizing like these dudes don't even have it figured out.
No, they ain't got it figured out. No,
Right.
and that's the cold part about it. We started emulating after people who didn't know what they was doing because they didn't have nobody teaching them. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So they freestyled. You know what I'm saying? So we just got a bunch of goofiness just been passed down. You know what I'm saying? You know, and it's just they created this big old snowball of bullshit that's out right now. You know what I mean?
Because we looking at
can't
the
get rid of
external.
it. That's right. That's right. That's
But
right.
we don't know what's going on internally.
Without a doubt.
Right? And my thing is, that's why I say, like, I mean, I can never stop commending you on your platform.
Appreciate it.
Because it's like the things that we learned in these groups that we have
Yes.
to, like going aboard, like how we spoke, like going aboard and the board telling you, all right, I need you to take these classes.
Yeah.
So now, if it's not mandated, we wouldn't even be as far as we is now.
Without a doubt, they saved us, and
Right.
we didn't even know they was trying to save us.
Yeah.
we just thought they was bullshitting us. They trying to figure out a reason to keep me in jail. You know what I'm saying? No, we trying to figure out a reason so you can get out of jail and never come back again.
Exactly.
You know, because once you figure out this goofy shit while you was out there doing the shit that you
Yeah.
was doing, it just does not make sense whatsoever. You know what I'm saying? So, when was the first time you like really just got in some serious trouble when you went to juvenile hall? How did?
Oh, man. The first time I was 13,
Yeah.
I was in a stolen car,
Yeah.
and I just couldn't pull over. I don't know why I couldn't pull over, but high-speed chase, you know? And I drove right past the house, honked the horn and everything. Like,
Oh, man.
you know?
Yeah.
I
Oh
just,
shit.
I couldn't
That was
stop.
funny.
Right.
That was funny.
And the little, I already had it mapped out. Like, if I ever get in a high speed chase, I'm gonna take them this way and this way, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't even know.
You 13.
Yeah, in Dorset Village, they, I guess earlier that day they put the gates up so you couldn't go straight through to Slauson, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I turned up in there and it was gates. I said,
Oh my God.
they yanked me out the car. And that's when they used to whoop on you real
Whoop
bad.
you bad.
right?
Wasn't no cameras.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just bust my lip and was
Yeah.
like, hold on, he's a juvenile, he's a juvenile. I was like, ooh, thank you.
Thank God.
Right. So took me to 77, set me on that bench in front of the little metal wall, drove me to Las Padrinas.
Yeah. Las Padrinas.
I got up in there and I was like, the homies didn't explain this
Yeah.
to me right here, this type of part of the gang. Got in there, I didn't even know we had so many enemies.
Yeah.
Right? You know, it was like hit and miss. I got dudes walking up, dissing me and all
Yes.
that. I'm sitting there like, man,
Yeah.
what is this?
Yeah.
Somebody had to come and tell me, like,
Yeah.
hey, look, I'm new to,
Green.
yeah, I'm green to juvenile hall.
Straight up.
This part of the gang stuff.
Nobody told you nothing.
No, they didn't tell me about this, right?
Yeah.
So these dudes, you got dudes coming down from camp,
Looking swole, looking like
YA, all
grown
that,
men.
right?
Yeah.
I'm like, damn. So, you know, the dude like, hey, when somebody dish your hood and all that, man, you gotta handle your business. I never had a problem with fighting.
Yeah.
So I need to know what to do next, right?
Yeah.
So once he gave me that game, so the next person that thought they was finna come diss,
Yeah.
jumped up and got on him.
Huh.
Then once I started to see like people like, all right, they respect violence.
They respect violence.
And so I started adding violence. Like, all right, I got to, and I remember my mother told me, like, if somebody too big, you pick up something and you use it on them. And so all of that was embedded in my mind too, right? So this is this is a learned behavior.
Yes.
Right? What I learned later on in life. But back then, it was like I didn't even expect to see 16.
Yeah.
You know,
Crazy.
I thought I was going to get killed like about 14, the way I was living.
Yeah.
I had lost one of my childhood friends at 13.
Yeah.
You know, he couldn't even drive and try to carjack somebody.
Wow.
And it just was just a lot of, you know, when you go back and you look back at your life, like when they came with the busing system.
Yeah.
When they in elementary, they started sending us out to the
Valleys and all that, yeah.
right? So they was more advanced. And so like my older brother, he was advanced too.
Yeah.
Right. So the following semester, my mother sent us to school with notes to give to our teacher. I didn't read the note. My brother read his note.
Yeah.
He threw it away.
Yeah.
I didn't know this note was saying hold me back in the 3rd grade.
Wow.
Right. So when that happened, to pay, I'm out for revenge with my mother now. So I stopped excelling in school. I wasn't interested in school because I already been embarrassed.
Yeah.
Because all my friends looking at me like, why you still like?
Yeah, we over here.
Yeah, why you still over there? You know, so.
And kids is relentless.
Yeah.
And ruthless.
Yeah, so I started causing problems all in the school, in the education department, to where my mother sent my little brother and I to Louisiana to stay for a year with my father, with his parents.
Yeah.
And then out there was a different ball game. You know, now they not hip to the gangs. I'm already a gangbanger already.
Yeah.
So they not hip to that. So they laughing and joking, but I'm serious now because I done been around serious people.
Yeah.
So my cousins, they like, oh, cousin, you go here now, right? And when I spoke, it was one of the guys from Louisiana. He was like, oh, he sound proper. I hit him right in his mouth. And so then I go to the vice principal office, which is my cousin.
Yeah.
He said, and this is somebody already in front of me.
Yeah.
He already getting 10 swats.
Yeah.
Right?
This is the SWAT days.
Yeah, with the fiberglass paddle,
Yeah,
right? So I'm
yeah,
sitting there,
yeah.
I'm like, ooh, wee. I got up on there. He gave me my 10.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, man, that stung. But he even took me back to the woods, dropped me off. My big mama said, I see who dropped you off. I ain't even got to say nothing to you. She already knew what he was about.
Without a doubt.
And so that didn't deter me either.
Yeah.
Right? And so when I came back, it was like I had an older god brother out the jungles.
Yeah.
And he was a lot of influence to me too. You know, he was like 5, 6 years older. He used to watch us, babysitters, my brothers and I. And so I got back in 86 in July, and he got killed 2 days when I got back.
Sorry to hear that. Rest in peace.
And so on his block, the block where he got killed at on Palmwood, they show it in training day.
Yeah.
But it was like, I didn't understand with him like getting killed. I didn't understand that part. Like I didn't cry or nothing when I seen him in the casket.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it, right? But it was like just going through life. I was just going through life just till I bumped my head.
Yeah.
I didn't care where I bumped it at.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, I'm in search for this character. I want to feed this character and everything. And so I started, like I said, being rebellious towards education. So I started ditching school, 7th grade, and I was going to Horseman. And my mother, she took the day off. I'm like, you gonna be late for work? She like, nah, I took the day off. I want to see how you doing in school. I'm like, oh, shit. I ain't been to school in months.
Yeah.
Wow.
Know?
So she take me, you know, we sitting in that office. He pull up my little records and everything. It's like, oh, you been out for a while. And my mother, you know, she in public, she holding her. She give me that look. But once we got out, she said, you miss another day of school, I'm going to beat your ass, right? The next day, I don't know, man. Something was wrong with me. And next day I ditched school.
Without a doubt.
But I told the fellas, I said, look, I can ditch, but we got to go to homeroom first. I got to, because they ain't going to call home.
Why do we think that matters? No, that's how stupid we were.
Yeah.
Sit back and think about it. The report card is still going to show you was not in these classes, idiot, when you show up.
But this how stupid I was, though. I let them talk me into getting on the bus going a whole different direction. Right? And I'm like, we ain't going to make it back by 8.
At all.
I'm like, oh, man. So I started asking Tremaine. He was a frequent runawayer, right? I said, what you be doing this stuff, man, when you... You know, I want to know everything what he doing, right? He said, man, I just be walking around. I said, all night? He like, yeah. I'm like, all right. So I was holding that option in place. I said, damn, I'm going to have to be walking around with him all night. I can't go home. You can know. So,
oh, shit.
my junior high school girl, she was so attached. She was like, I'm going too. She said, I know we can go to my auntie house, right?
Yeah.
We get on the bus down Crenshaw. And so we end up World on Wheels.
Yeah.
I hadn't been to World on Wheels in the daytime,
Yeah.
right? We used to always go at nighttime, right? So I'm like, damn, look familiar over here.
Yeah.
Get over there, meet her auntie. Auntie was from schoolyard, right? I'm like, at this time, I'm like, I tell her, I said, yeah, my brother's Big Petey Wack from 60s. He was like, what? So her homeboy started coming over there. So next thing you know, they like, Petey Wack, your brother? And I seen they was aggressive. I said, nah, that ain't my brother.
He said, not at all.
No, that ain't my brother, man. I just said that, man. So
Oh, man.
had that culture experience over there.
Yeah.
And so I was over there for like a month.
Yeah.
So girl, she walked me outside.
You just didn't come back home.
Nah.
Period. Didn't
right?
call, didn't just.
Nothing.
Wow.
So I'm over there. So my childhood girl, Kamisha, she got caught the first within hours. Her mom and father came over there. They already
Immediately.
knew where she probably was at. They was already checking places. They was getting ready to leave because they seen her auntie downstairs. And she was like, no, I haven't seen her. And she loud with the music, dancing and partying. That door came open. Her father rushed her to the wall. I was easing myself out the place.
I'm out of here.
Her mom said, where you going? I walked past her, jumped over the wall.
No, I'm gone.
But, you know, they told my mother where I was at. And when she came, I happened to see her. And I backed up, and they was like, nah, we haven't seen him. He left that first day.
Yeah.
And so my Uncle Howard, who was a postman, he started passing out mail over there. So I'm like, oh, I can't even come out in the daytime over here.
That's crazy. Small world.
Yeah, so after a while, after a month, she told me, she was like, I know your family missing you. You need to go home.
Yeah.
You know?
And how old was you?
I was 13.
Wow. That's crazy.
I was 13, and I walked to Crenshaw in Venice and made that phone call.
Yeah.
My grandfather, rest in peace, he came and got me. He had my little brother and two of my little cousins. You know, they was like puppies, happy to see me.
Yeah. You've been gone forever. That's a long time.
My grandfather
a whole month, that was a long time not to see somebody.
Yeah, it was something my grandfather embedded. He was like, you survived in these streets for a month. He said, you can survive anywhere. So I always carried that in my mind, no matter where I'm at, like in prison. Always use my imagination, my memories, to give me that strength. You know, no matter where they put me, I used to always have a saying, you can put me in an empty sardine can, I'll still survive because I got a lot of memory. I remember a lot of stuff.
Without a doubt.
And so that's why I didn't dibble and dabble with drugs and none of that stuff because I wanted to keep those memories intact and
Without a doubt.
everything, you know. And so a lot of things, you know, just traveling, I start to mature from being in them streets. And right then when I made it back, my mother, she was like, come in the room. And I told her right there, I'm like, I'm not getting no whoopings no more. That's over with. She was like, no, you want to go live with your father? I said, it don't matter. I'm not getting no whoopings no more.
That's all I'm telling you.
Yeah.
We ain't doing that no more.
Yeah, so it was like, I didn't even know, like you said, like taking these classes, I didn't even know I was a victim of domestic violence.
Without a doubt.
Childhood
trauma.
Yeah, you think of domestic violence, you think that's a husband and a wife, like spousal. No. Children fall under that as well.
That's why the rules has changed now. That's why it ain't cool to beat on your kids no more.
Nah.
For whatever they done done. You know what I'm saying? You got to put that time, because, you can't, some people can't distinguish the difference. You know what I mean? And if you whoop the motherfucker with a stitching cord, that's not, that's abuse. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? That is not a whooping. That's some other shit.
That's
you know
abuse.
what I mean? So, but that was passed on to our slave masters.
Yeah.
I mean, people don't connect that.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? But that's where that was passed down from.
Yeah.
From slave, we gonna make you act right. The switch is gonna do it from you. You know what I mean?
And that's what made me more rebellious.
Without a doubt. So you do the camp programs and
I went
the YAs and all that there?
Man, I did the whole gang schooling.
The whole schooling. You got to go through it all now.
I went to juvenile hall was elementary.
Yes, sir.
Camp was junior high.
Junior high school.
YA was high school.
And the pen was college.
And the pen was college.
Yeah.
Every level.
Yeah,
because I wanted my issue.
Yeah.
As a gang member, I thought a true gang member has to go through all of this.
Yeah.
But I was so dumb.
Wasn't we?
I was dumb, like thinking this was the way, right? And so I went through all of that.
Yeah.
The camps, juvenile hall, YA, and I really didn't learn my lessons too much in YA because I got sent to Ventura, a co-ed.
Co-ed prison.
And it was like I was on the street, right? And
Everybody,
the females was, this is when I really started respecting females. It was more females in there for murder than anything. I'm like, damn. I used to be thinking females wasn't capable of even doing that, killing nobody.
Shit.
They was up in there ruthless.
They was kids. Keep this in mind. I'm telling you, they was kids too. They was 15, 16. They wasn't even 18. You know what I mean? Yeah.
One of my, my childhood friends up in there. She was young, Roblique. Mm-hmm. She was out of Watts.
Yeah.
She was a rider.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Straight up.
They whole little crew, but it was like seeing all of that, being exposed.
Yeah.
I think each level that I got exposed to opened my eyes and sharpened me a little bit different, right? And some levels I didn't grasp it right then and there because I was too in tune with, I got to do this, handle this. And I wanted to do stuff without being told.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be told, go stab this dude.
Yeah.
I'm not doing none of that.
Yeah.
I'm not no
Yeah.
yes
Not a
man.
gopher.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. I was the rebellious one.
Yeah.
And I think it was good for me to think of having this in mind, like I didn't listen to my mother.
Yeah.
So how I'm going to listen to somebody
you.
else?
That's right.
And that's what got me in a lot of trouble.
And that's what we would say too.
Yeah,
I
like
listen to my mama, nigga. I'm listening to you.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that.
Without a doubt.
But I had older, like I say, uncles and stuff. I had that one uncle, my Uncle Larry, that grew up on the east side. He came out the mains, and I looked more towards him than my father because he been to prison.
Yeah.
He was in the gang.
He lived the life you lived. You relate to him.
He drove trucks.
Yeah.
So, and he was in the pen most of the time, like as in my childhood.
Yeah.
And so I remember going to visit him in camp. Kim was like, wow, thinking like, man, I want to be like my uncle. I want to follow behind him. But a lot of things, a lot of adults, they don't share with the youth. They don't give them the rawness of the experiences that they have. We always highlight I had this much money and all this stuff, but what about when you was broke? Why you don't talk about that? How you overcame being,
right.
let's talk about that. But a lot of things, I'm not afraid to be honest, with myself and share my honesty with people. I done been through things and had to make corrections.
For sure.
You know.
So
Yeah.
question. Mm-hmm. What year did you catch a life sentence? How did you get life?
1999.
1999.
And it was May. I had so many signs.
Yeah.
I just got back from Kansas, from Wichita, being in a tornado.
So you had been moving around. So you wasn't stuck like a lot of us, just in the hoods. You had been traveling as a young kid.
You know why? At 7 years old, my grandfather, who was a truck driver, used to pick me up.
Yeah.
Take me across the country.
Yeah.
I went at 7 years old. I went all the way to Boston.
Yeah.
That was my fascination of driving cars. Want to drive all the time because I was exposed to driving at a young age. And so, in '99, like I said, I had so many different signs telling me to sit down. I had people calling me from prison like, "Hey, sit down somewhere. You moving too fast, right?" And I had a good job. I was doing plumbing.
Yeah.
But my little brother had just got arrested for something he didn't do.
Yeah.
And so he was looking at the death penalty. So I reached back into my gang archives and was like, I got a job, I'm not going to cut it. I need to get him a lawyer. I just felt like I'm out here, so I need to get him a lawyer. That's what the excuse I use, right? And got caught up in Culver City. Got pulled over, driving my mother a brand new car. Got caught with weed, 5 ounces of weed in the gun. So I was an ex-felon in possession of a firearm. And one of the things that I did was, I lied to my mother.
Yeah.
I said, the police planted all this stuff on me. I never took accountability, And my mother, she left this earth without me even telling her the truth.
Sorry to hear that, man. Sorry to hear that, yeah.
And I just carried that lie. I just told that lie so many times that I really started believing.
You started believing it.
Yeah. I was walking around prison with a hearing aid, trying to sue the police department, And so after a while, I started realizing, like, the police, they got a job just like anybody else. And, that's good observation. They pulled us over in a traffic stop, had me step out. And when they went to pat me down, I caught one of them on his chin. And it escalated from there. They could have got me for assault, but they figured, oh, we got him for this gun and this weed, and they just charged me with that instead of assault. And I figured God was sitting me down. I knew I wasn't through.
Yeah.
If I just start to figure it out, and I started going to the law library and start learning the language, the laws, and interpreting the laws, the language and everything. Because at first, when you get life, you like, damn, I done already kicked up dust on the yards and everything. Now I'm like, what do we do now? Right? And, being in there with a life sentence, you like, all right, you always told the police is the enemy, this and that, right? So if we saying that, I expect you to stand on that, right? We shouldn't have to ask the police for tissue or nothing, right? So once I start seeing people talking to the police and doing things that they say we don't supposed to do, that made it easy for me to start just let me get familiar with myself, right? And I had no idea I had the skills that I have.
Yeah.
And I just start to open up, and then, gradually, when people would say, hey, man, you want to come to group? I ain't going to that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until the law started changing and the board got involved, like, oh, you got to go to board, you got to go do this. And so when I got in those classes, the first time, you know, standing up in those groups, CGA, the Criminal Gang Anonymous, you know, and you have to share your ugliness, right? You don't want to share that in front of everybody, you know, your trauma, your childhood trauma and all of that, right? And so I wasn't real big on speaking publicly, right? And so my first time up, I was, man, you would have swore I had a Jerry curl all over again. I was sweating all over the place. I'm like, man, people looking at me. I could feel the sweat trickling. I'm like, oh. But I started speaking towards that sweat.
You can go stick a gun in the person's face, but you can't get up and talk to him.
But I
talk
told
in front of a crowd. Ain't that something?
Yeah, I told him. I said, look, never mind the sweat, but I got something I need to get off my chest. And once I start to do that, and then I start taking classes like Toastmasters where they help you publicly speak and everything, start doing that. And once I start getting on that path, everything started opening up, right? It started opening, and then I was like, oh, I'm getting close. I can feel it, right? These laws changing, and just happened to be sitting at the right table at the right time in the law library. Somebody was like, hey, man, you up on this bill, 483? And I'm like, man, let me take that back and dissect it. Called the old attorney I had. Was like, hey, man, can you see if I qualify for this? And once he looked, he like, oh, yeah, let me get this in front of a judge.
And that's crazy that because he had to take that case.
Yeah. And he, you know, Tom Moore. And,
shouts out to him, man.
Assistant public defender, L.A. County.
Oh, wow.
And, and so when I came home, I spoke at the public defender's picnic.
Without a doubt.
I spoke, you know, and wearing this same shirt right here.
Without a doubt.
Right?
Yeah.
And it was just like giving back, like, and they started asking me whatever I needed. And I started, you know, thinking about some of the questions like the board would ask, like, what would you do if you lost your job? And the first time I didn't know how to respond to that. I ain't like, oh, no, he not ready. You know, but the thing is, if you in need, it's all kind of resources around you. Ask, right? You shouldn't, in this day and age, shouldn't be sticking no gun to nobody's face, robbing them and all of that stuff.
Take it back. So what did that law apply to you that helped you in your situation?
When I got sentenced to 76 years to life.
Okay.
Right? Wow. And so it was 75
for some
because
weed and a gun.
It was 3 counts.
3 strikes, though.
Yeah. So under 3 strikes, for each count is 25 to life. So they charged me with the gun twice.
Yeah.
Ex-felon in possession of a firearm and carrying a concealed firearm. So that was 25, and then possession of marijuana for sale. That's 25. And then how I got out under 483 was that 1 year that they attached, that prison prior.
Yeah.
That law, they were no longer able to do that.
Okay.
And so if you had been sentenced with that 1 year prison prior, then you was entitled to a full resentencing.
Oh, wow.
Right? So I used their language. And so under today's law, they no longer striking people out.
Okay.
For gun possession.
Okay.
Right? So you had to sentence me under today's laws. And so when they did that, they gave me time served. So I came home with no parole or nothing.
Because weed is not a crime case no more. And that's right. Yeah.
And so when I came home,
what a blessing.
I continued to advocate for those still behind those walls and those still not educated on the laws and still have gang ties and still want to be part of the politics.
Without a doubt.
I still get out and advocate for these individuals because I understand, you know, the sickness.
Without a doubt.
You know, the addiction. I understand all those addictions.
Without a doubt.
And so, I mean, just throwing people away is not the solution.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Now today, I mean, you know, I had struggles coming home.
How long you been home?
I've been home 2 years.
Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you. And so coming home, immediately I was working the movie sets. I was a producer assistant.
Wow.
Right? And working, and then that strike happened.
Yeah.
And so now, like, oh man, I don't have no job.
Yeah.
So it's rough. Like people like, you got to bring something to the table.
Yeah.
You know, my girl, she like, I can't just carry the family. So now you like, dang, and it feel like pressure as she's saying this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm like, I got to stay away from the criminal thinking.
That's right.
I know from working behind those walls and vocation and everything, I got great work experience and everything. And so I lucked up. I got blessed. I won't say lucked up. I got blessed to happen to be in Glendale and go to a sports bar to regroup. And I was sitting there watching the football game. And the guy, when I looked to the side, it was a white dude standing next to me. I'm like, oh, man, what's up? He was like, oh, man, just watching the game. I said, yeah, that's my team. It was the Washington Commanders.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, he said, you from Baltimore or Maryland or Washington or something? I said, that's just my team. He said, I'm from North Carolina. I said, yeah. I said, I drive box trucks that's through there too.
Yeah.
He like, oh, you drive box trucks? He said, my company, we got box trucks nobody want to drive. I'm like, what? I said, give me your information.
Yeah.
Man, this dude hooked me up.
Wow. Chance meeting.
Justin, right?
Shouts out to Justin.
Peterson Event Lighting Company in North Hollywood.
Shouts out.
And that job right there that job right there. I did event, set up events at Kim Kardashian house.
Yeah.
Didn't even know it was her house.
Yeah.
Until the kids was trick or treating.
Yeah.
And they said,
wow.
They asked the security, can we take a picture of Kim Kardashian house? I did and dropped everything on my foot. Like, what?
I've been up in it.
Right? It's like, dang. And then set up for Jay-Z and Beyonce and her daughter, Blue Ivy, her birthday party.
That's cool.
And, just getting exposed to different things and just watching my spirit navigate and just transition, just change in front of me. And just seizing the opportunities and, just meeting great people and relearning, society and how to live, you know what I mean? And instead of living just on the edge all the time.
Without a doubt. Doing new things.
Yeah, doing
new
things.
What's one of the one things you've done that you had never done, that you came home and you were just fascinated by?
Having a child.
You had a child.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
50 years old.
50 years old.
My son, Elijah Blue.
That's something, boy. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Boy's still swimming all that time alone, but we had to use them. They've been loaded up. That's without a doubt.
My pride and joy.
Whole nother feeling. You got a child. And let me tell you something. When you become a grandfather, you like the grandkids, man. You like your kids. I'm trying to tell you. It's a whole nother experience. I'm telling you.
A whole nother experience.
Without a doubt. But it's a blessing, man. Congratulations, man.
My girl, holding us down and. Being my rock.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Like, if I say stupid things, she just look at me and she won't bite into it.
That's
like,
right.
She won't let no energy connect to it.
Don't feed the beast.
Yeah.
Starve him out.
And so that let me know, man, let me regroup and stop just blurting out stuff, man.
Without a doubt, man. That's a blessing, man. You're home, man. I'm glad. What you doing out here since you've been? I know you've been. I didn't heard trucks, but how's the trucking going for you? Is that?
Oh yeah, I went to school, and after the strike, they never called us back. So, Friends Outside, they got me. Before I was with Friends Outside, I got connected with the Dominique Paul Foundation.
Okay.
And so they led me through Friends Outside.
Okay.
Shouts out to Joe Paul.
Shouts out, man.
And so once they connected me with Friends Outside, they paid for my trucking, my school.
Wow, what a blessing.
Right?
What a blessing.
And so my boy Renee over there at Friends Outside, they hooked me up.
Yeah.
And so, and I was doing a little work on the side for other nonprofits like Made New, Creative Acts.
Yeah.
I did a couple of scenes like where they go back, they create this content on the virtual reality headsets, and they take it back into the prisons and
Okay.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so was able to, stay grounded like that. And I started, once I graduated from Toro, the trucking school, I got my license and started working at a trucking company.
Man,
Just
what a
that,
blessing.
yeah.
What a blessing, man.
And, one of the biggest things is I'm proud of is my nephew. Tonight I'll be, sharing a truck with my nephew.
Without a doubt, man. That's a blessing.
So it's able to
Keeping it in the family. Like, started in the trucks with grandpa at 7 and still with these trucks. Now you got your nephew with you. That's a blessing, man.
So,
to be able to show him the ropes, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't want to show him the things that I showed his father.
That's
without
a doubt.
The gang
doubt.
culture.
Without a
You know what I
doubt.
mean? Let me show him something different.
Without a doubt.
Let's be more productive and responsible
Without
out
a
here.
doubt. Because we got to break that. We got to break that generational curse of just being goofy, man, and going back to these prisons. And see, the thing with us is now that we didn't took the time out to know. You know what I'm saying? We took out to learn ourselves to really understand these childhood traumas that how it affected us. Because people just think it's nothing. You know what I mean? And we didn't. Dealing with childhood trauma was 40s and weed. You know what I'm saying? But if you don't deal with them issues, man, they fester and they gonna continue to grow. You know what I mean? And they're gonna explode. So without dealing with them, that's what makes us become the people that we became.
Yeah.
And so I tell people all the time, I said, man, I used to be broken. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was a broken little boy. Your daddy left him on the porch many times. Be a broken young man who wreaked havoc and chaos on society because this man left me on the porch so many times.
Yeah.
And it just don't make sense after that.
It don't make
That's what I'm
sense.
saying. None of it makes sense, you know what I mean? But listen, hey, I want to thank you for sharing your story with us, man. We appreciate you, man, for coming on out. Appreciate y'all for tuning in.
Yeah, man.
Hey, look, you can check us out. We'll be here. Tell somebody, share it, like it, comment, and let people know we got some great content going on. We talking to some great people who done came home from having a second chance in life and who's doing great things with themselves and into society. So listen, with that being said, I want to thank y'all for tuning in. Peace. Y'all have a great one. And that's a